This is our open committee of the whole meeting, the Board of Education of Comox Valley Schools. The Board of Education acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nation. We would like to thank them for the privilege of living on their land and the gift of living with their children. And I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. And our next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
I can make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Seconder. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, that was Trustee McConnell. And that's carried. Thank you. And we have several presentations and or one presentation delegation tonight on two topics. I think we're doing it a combination of, is it hybrid and in person? And so am I turning sword to the Secretary Treasurer?
You can introduce them if you would like.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I said you could, but.
Oh, I could. Okay.
Either way, I'm happy to.
I would be happy if you did tonight.
I am just wondering though, if we have a connection. Okay. Okay, so yes, the first presentation is Darren Harding, which is architecture and design with regards to arena number 3, the feasibility study. So welcome to Darren, if you can hear us.
And to Trish.
And to Trish.
Yes?
Yes.
You guys are co-facilitating?
We're co-facilitating, yeah.
Thank you. And Trish, you're Trish Morgan.
Yes,
Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Trish Morgan. I'm the Assistant Senior Manager for the Comox Valley Regional District.
Thank you. Welcome.
Let's wait for the... Darren, are you able to bring up the first slide there? I think you
Yes.
have the power.
Yes, I will. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Are you able to see the screen?
We got
Does
it.
it show up there?
Yep, it's working.
Great. Good.
Awesome. Okay. So first of all, thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Trish Morgan, like I mentioned before, and we've got Darren Harding from HCMA Architecture and Design, and he's zooming in from Calgary tonight, and he is an associate principal with the firm. Together, we're going to provide you with an update on the Arena 3 project. So to give the board a little background, which some of you may or may not be aware of, in the spring of 2023, the Comox Valley Recreation Commission adopted a new strategic plan. The plan identified a number of projects and initiatives for examination, and in the immediate term, they identified the artificial turf field, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. In the short term, they also identified the examination of a third sheet of ice for the Comox Valley. And in the medium term, they identified examination of an addition to the aquatic center and the development of a plan for the sports center pool, which is nearing 50 years of age. At the same time, they wanted to look more at how the CVRD could reduce its carbon footprint and reduce greenhouse gas emissions as a result of our operations with our recreation facilities. Since last spring, we have made significant progress on the plan, having now completed the decarbonization strategy that will guide us through reducing our greenhouse gas emissions through the replacement of equipment that is meeting its life cycle replacement milestones. We've also moved forward with the artificial turf field, which again, I'll discuss more in the next presentation. And we've completed a feasibility study on an arena. I think it's important to note that with these very large capital projects like an arena, the CVRD is still at the exploratory stage. We're looking at what might be possible and what might be a good fit. And the CVRD has not committed funding to an arena or a pool, and we haven't even selected a design for the arena just yet. So at this time, I'm here tonight not to ask the school district to commit to leasing more land for this potential facility. We're simply exploring what might be possible, what might be the right fit in terms of size for the community, and seeking some feedback from the school district and engagement with the school district in our business case process. I'm going to pass this on to Darren now for a bit, and he'll walk you through the designs that we came up with, and then I'll talk to you about the next steps.
Great. Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you virtually. I would like to walk through a summary of a bit of the work that we did through this feasibility study. And so the scope of this study was to look at an NHL-sized sheet of ice, 2,000 spectator seats, 6 to 8 dressing rooms, the potential of a walking track, running track, and then to better understand the parking constraints on the site. And so that was largely the scope that we were looking at to see its possibility on the site. The first thing that we did was to look at the environmental constraints and possibilities on the site. And so through that assessment, we acknowledge, on the east side of the site, we have steep grades with a lot of heavy treed area. We know we have mature Gary oak grouping of those trees on the site that we need to respect and protect. We have the Towhee Creek that moves through the site that has setbacks included in it. And then at the south side of the site, there's a wetlands area that should be respected as well. So through that process and taking into consideration these site constraints, we identified 3 different locations that were possible for the development of a third arena. The first one being directly connected to the sports center, the second one pulled away just slightly, and then the third one would be on the south side of the site near Headquarters Road. And for the purpose of the presentation today, option 3 was less viable than the others, so I'm just going to focus on locations 1 and 2 just for this presentation today. And so the first thing we looked at was this spectator arena and to locate it directly adjacent the existing facility. And so you'll see it located there. The 2 orange arrows represent the entrances. And so we put it right next to the facility. And by doing that, it changes a number of things on the site. And so there are a lot of good things about its location and its connectivity to the existing facility. One of the things it does is that it modifies the vehicular traffic that goes through the site. And so historically, you would have vehicular traffic that would flow from the school through the parking lot from east to west and then come out on Vanier Drive. And so with the new facility placed here, that would disrupt that flow. And so in this proposal, we're exploring to remove that vehicular bridge and leave it as a pedestrian traffic only. So there's still pedestrian traffic between the school and the new facility. And that we would accommodate vehicular traffic with an expanded turnaround space. So they would come in here, turn around, and then go back to the same road. May need to look at widening that road as well. So this building places here. Moving to the next page here, this is what the floor plan would look like for this facility. And so it's connected to the existing facility via this internal street. And we see this as a great opportunity to pull in people that are coming from the school, coming from the main entrance side, and have this community gathering space in the middle. It's directly located in line. The access doors to get in the arena are directly in line within the existing administrative and reception area. So they would have sight lines over how you would access this area. The floor plan on the lower level includes 8 dressing rooms. One of them would be a larger scale junior A change room. It includes back house, isoplant area. It also has administrative offices, and it also has a CRU opportunity that would open up onto the internal street. When we think about this internal street, we think about an opportunity where there could be community gathering opportunities, but also programmatic opportunities. You could imagine a farmer's market in that area, and a good opportunity for the community to come together and gather. On the second floor, we would have the 2,000 seats for the spectator arena in a bowl setting around the ice. It would also have a walking and running track that will walk around the edges. And there would also be a multi-purpose room for use or a VIP use during an event, a concession, and washrooms on the second floor. And so opportunities here is that there would be efficiency in having a centralized reception and administration. You wouldn't have to duplicate that for this particular layout, which saves in staffing costs. It also gives opportunity for this internal street for additional programming for the community. Some of the challenges are that it does modify the vehicular traffic through the site, and that there's a little bit lower parking opportunity because the building sits right in the middle of the parking lot. The second option we looked at was to take that very same floor plan, the same building, what's included in it, and pull it south of the parking lot so that it would allow to maintain the vehicular traffic from the school through the parking lot and out to Vanier Drive. So this maintains this. But what makes it unique about this option is that now it's building it on top of the slope that slopes down to the track and field. And so this complicates things a little bit, but also gives some opportunity. And so it would create a bit of space underneath the building that would be usable. And that could be given back to uses near the track and field. And so that could be used for change rooms or storage, could be used for pickleball courts, something that would be directly adjacent to the track and field. So that could be a benefit to the project. So the opportunities there is it maintains the pedestrian or the vehicular traffic through the site. The challenges are that it disassociates the administrative and reception, so you'd have to duplicate that role and the staffing for that. And it adds some cost in the construction because you're building on that slope. So the last option we want to share with you is in the same location as option one, but now what's possible if it's only a community arena and we remove the spectator component. And so in this situation, we still have the ice and we've removed the spectator component. We still have 8 dressing rooms and you're still connected to the existing building. And so this expands the ice time, the program opportunities for ice. It gives you that third sheet of ice, but it doesn't give you the spectator component. You still have the efficiency of administrative and reception. This one, you're still modifying vehicular access from the school through to the arena. And then you also don't have the spectator component. And so, you know, through that analysis, our recommendation is that that the team move forward with either option 1 or option 4 because of that connection to the existing facility, and it has that efficiency for administrative as well. So I think I'll leave it at that there.
Awesome. Thanks, Darren. So for the CVRD, our next step in this process is to do a business case analysis. And with that, we will examine these designs more to determine which option is most suitable for the Comox Valley. And we're going to be looking at a number of factors such as market demand. So what is the projected potential use of each concept by the community and user groups? Are there opportunities for another junior hockey team or sports academy, concerts, special events? What the economic impacts might be, like on tourism and job creation, the financial feasibility, so potential for revenue generation on operating costs, because these directly relate to taxation, and most importantly, the social and community benefits of sport and recreation for children, youth, and adults in our community. As I mentioned at the beginning, we're still at the exploratory stage, and the Rec Commission has not committed to any one of the designs. They're interested in learning more. We will be going through the business case process, looking at option 1, 2, and then also 4. So we will be looking at that one that is adjacent to the sports center, only because it does provide that really interesting extra use space. Operationally, it is challenging, but we want to look at that at this time rather than moving forward later and wishing that we hadn't. What we really want to know from the school board is your feedback. Is there anything within those designs that you see as being challenging, problematic for the school, for the site, for traffic, or as the district as a whole? And we would like to engage you with us in that business case process. So as a stakeholder in it and as the owner of the grounds too. So that's what we're looking for from you. Again, at this time, we're not looking for just asking you to commit to anything, except for be partners with us in this process and provide us with your feedback. And that's it.
through the
Yeah.
chair. First of all, my apologies, as I didn't realize you were here in person or make the connection. Like, that was rude, and I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
It's a pleasure to meet you for the first time. I think it would be really helpful to have the slides, and then at our board meeting on October 22nd, if you're able to come back, then trustees, if there are any questions, would be able to ask.
I just would have one quick question. I normally sit on the Recreation Commission, as you know, but was unable to attend the meeting where this came up. Was there any like immediate kind of questions or any kind of concerns that came out of the commission? Or were they just hoping for a little bit more information as well?
I would say it was very well received. You know, it was more of a, now we got to kind of figure out what's the right fit. Is a 2,000 seat arena the right size for our community? Do we need that? Can we make use of it? Is that investment worthwhile? Or should we be looking at a community rink, right? Like, I think that's the biggest thing right now. And because it is, as you probably saw in the corner of the slides, it's a significant investment, right? So, yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that additional information.
Go ahead.
Are the two models that you're looking at the same square footage, like in terms of land occupation?
For the spectator arenas, they are the same. The footprint for the community rink is smaller. I don't have that with me, but I wonder, Darren, do you have the footprint for the community rink is, of course, smaller than the spectator.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it would definitely be almost half or a third less.
I just significantly smaller enough that I noticed the additional parking spaces. There was an additional 2 rows of parking in the community when I noticed on the sort of west side. So in between the field, yeah.
Great. Don't see any more hands. So thank you very much for part A. Before you move into part B, I guess the important part for the trustees that we'll need to consider is that this is the land that's owned by the school district that is leased to the regional district, and some of the opportunities and implications of that going forward. And we'll learn more about that coming up to our October 22nd meeting. Moving on to, or circling back to, the artificial turf field, which I know we've discussed before. And I think it's back. It's risen back up. I'm trying to find a soccer analogy, and it's just I just can't get there at the moment. So if somebody has one,
It's okay. I didn't bring one either. But yes, that is right. It has risen back up. It was on pause for a little while, but it's back again. So a quick update on the artificial turf field. As you recall, I wasn't with the regional district when we came forward to request to partner again with the school district on building another artificial turf field, and specifically asking that we can build it on Banye's property there. So that happened last May 2023. Since that time, we engaged sport field user groups. We engaged some of your staff. And we hired a firm to develop a design and gather Class D cost estimates for us. So those were brought forward to the Rec Commission almost a year ago. At that time, there were some concerns about the cost of it. And we were working through some other plans, and the Rec Commission wanted to find out the results of those plans before they could determine whether or not they could commit to this. So the decarbonization plan was one of those. And so that was finished in the summer. And we brought this back to the Rec Commission on September 24th, and they did decide to move forward with it. So before I get into that, here's some information on the design of the field. So the artificial turf field will go at the top of 3 grass fields, and that's the field that does have some challenges right now in terms of use. So it's probably the perfect spot to put it because it does not require water. And with that, it's going to be a regulation size soccer field. It'll have that trapezoidal top area there, which will accommodate baseball up to U15 baseball. It will also have the lines on it for field lacrosse as well. You can also play field hockey on it. You can practice football and rugby. For football and rugby, the field is not quite long enough, and we just, because of the site, it couldn't be made any longer, but it can be used for practice space, and we would have to paint the lines on for that. In terms of the amenities, we're envisioning 2 washrooms that would go up somewhere near the outdoor classroom that you have on the site. 2 player shelters, boot brushes, the dugouts. There will be lighting like the current artificial turf field, only there'll be 6 poles. A pad for spectator seating, some storage area as well, and that sort of thing. And the washrooms will be insulated so they can be used year-round, is the plan for that. So here's just another depiction of the field there. And it will cut in a little bit into the slope there, but not significantly, and it won't impact the daycare that is being constructed. So in terms of next steps, so like I said, on September 24th, the Rec Commission approved to go forward with it. So they've made a recommendation to the regional board to move forward with 10-year borrowing. We brought forward 5, 10, and 15-year borrowing options, and they chose that 10-year to go forward with. So the bylaw for the borrowing is on the board agenda tonight, and I didn't get to see the result of it if it passed, but it was on for first, second, and third reading. If it did pass, then the plan is to look at an alternative approval process in January. And so that gives us a few months to get everything in order to move forward with that process. And there'll be some other alternative approval processes going ahead likely at that time. If that's successful, then we're looking at doing procurement middle of February, getting contracts awarded by around the end of March. During this time too, we'll finish up with our consultant all of the invitation to tender documents, the contractor documents and that sort of thing. And then we should be ready to start construction the beginning of May. During this period too, also work with your staff to either amend or establish a new agreement for the second artificial turf field, depending on what your preference is. We'll work through that process with you. And then if everything goes as planned and the weather holds, by the middle of September, we should see a new artificial turf field there. Something that will be different for this one is that moving forward, we would like to see this field move into a field allocation policy process. So the City of Courtenay is partnering with the other municipalities and the regional district, and we'll also engage Molly in this process as well to look at a field allocation process where fields are allocated based on long-term athlete development guidelines and the number of users they have in different age groups. So rather than a first come, first serve, get as much as you can basis, it'll be a more transparent process, which a lot of places use. And it will not be based just on providing financial contributions, and now you get the lump sum of it. So especially with a multi-purpose field, we want to make sure that there is that opportunity for other sports to use it. And I think that's about it. We're really looking forward to moving this project forward, and really, really thankful for the partnership we have with the school district and all the other things that we have done in terms of the arenas and the pools and now a second field. And I think, we're very thankful for being able to do that. So thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
I would just make a comment again, like I missed an exciting
Very exciting one.
meeting with a lot of decisions. But I did know what was happening, and I was just really happy to hear about the possible new structure of equity of different teams using fields and access in the Comox Valley for all kids. So I appreciate that. I'm excited for you guys to work together on that.
And this, yeah, and it will be great because it will be, if it's adopted by everyone, then it will be a policy that goes across the entire region for all fields, right? So.
And is there, through the Secretary Treasurer, is there an ask of the school board for this project?
Not at this time. We're very thankful for the land that you have given us or plan to give us to utilize. But that's about it at this time. So thank you for that. It wouldn't be possible if we had to purchase.
The policy being considered, is that specific to field usage or other facilities as well?
This one is specific to field usage. Yes.
Curious, thanks.
Yeah.
Would you be able to share that work once you get so that the
Oh,
board
absolutely.
can see the equity and how that's going to look? And also how do our Indigenous communities incorporate into that as well for equity?
Absolutely.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much. Welcome to our new building and our second or third meeting, I think, in this space.
Yes. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Trish. Nice to see you again.
Nice to meet you too.
Next, our next topic for this evening is a Feeding Futures update. And through our Secretary Treasurer, I'd like to welcome Thea Cockerton, our Food Services Coordinator, your first meeting with us in the Committee of the Whole section. So welcome.
Thank you.
I think Carrie's actually gonna.
Yeah, I just thought I would quickly go through the two briefing notes that we have in our board package. So on page 1, we have a briefing note with regards to setting up a Feeding Futures Advisory Committee. It provides some background information around insecurity and what the purpose of the Feeding Futures money and mandate is, a little bit about Food Policy Council so that we kind of understand everything that goes into food security along with the Feeding Futures money. And then in the analysis on page 2, which is essentially the purpose of the briefing note, it's to advise the board that now that Thea is on board and she's done lots of digging into everything food in SD 71, including giving her huge credit to not only has she reviewed all of the documents and the research, but she has gone to every school.
I've got the islands and Hugh Band left.
Right, sorry.
All the others.
And talk to like who in the school is actually, preparing food, who is it that is serving it, how is it being done? And so she has really taught me a lot around that and probably can answer any questions you have. But now looking to set up that advisory committee that was part of the recommendations by the board. And I don't know if we want to stop there and see if there are any questions around that piece, and then we could go on to the other briefing note.
Want to do one at a time? Yeah. Not a problem. Are there any, is there,
The second Feeding Futures briefing that you mean, or just?
We can go through that one and then just have all the questions, or we can just do one at a time.
I see a lot of hands, so initially, so just, do you want to go through them both and then it's,
Sure, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on really either one of them because they are in your packages, and I know you've had time to read them, but the second one is around Feeding Futures and a little bit of information around the budget, how it's been allocated in various ways so far, and one of the things that's in the briefing notes is a little bit around how we will intend to keep the status quo for this year in terms of how we've been allocating monies. But also there's a great need to address some pieces for this current school year. And we're looking to do that within the budget as well. Essentially, most of that is around adding some food service workers in our schools that are feeling very taxed in terms of being able to provide that service. So yes, but just some background in terms of how the budget's been spent.
Jane?
Am I asking you questions, or can I direct my questions to Theo?
Through Carrie to.
Through Carrie to Theo?
Carrie can decide.
I think I have a few questions. Thank you so much for preparing this for us, because I know in the past we've had like lots of questions. It's a really exciting, big amount of money that we've got, and you know, it's a lot to kind of figure out where everything goes and all the pieces. I guess the first kind of curiosity that I had was just around the good food boxes here. I was just curious, I guess, just around like the money allocated, and I can see like the value of each box here, and I'm just, there's the value of the box, of what it costs for the box to be created, and then what SD 71 is paying per box. And I just wondered if you could just speak a little bit more to that, or
Yeah, I absolutely can.
what those costs might include.
I think it's still not totally clear how we got here. I think it goes back to when the good food boxes were started and the relationship with the district in this aspect began. It was during COVID, the schools had closed, and it was just we needed a solution quickly. Lush were able to respond to that and provided an amazing solution that got food to people that needed it at home. And I think it has carried on since there. I think the cost is partly paying back for some of that infrastructure increases, and is just I think it's just been a really good working relationship with Lush and covering their overheads. It is the price we've been quoted for this year is less than that. It's down to $40 a box. But I'm not super clear on how long that we keep paying that back. Like, it's not a definite number, so I'm not really sure.
There's another trustee that has a question, and then we'll circle back to what are Sarah Jane's questions. Christy?
Yes, through our Secretary Treasurer. I wanted to find out about, I was curious about the 301,803 of school allocations that have been carried forward. And just curious about that, you know, was that, you know, if there was any reason why those funds weren't spent, and, you know, if they weren't, if that's something that we're figuring out, that where there's funds that should be spent. From the report, I'm kind of feeling like a heavy lean to needing more food service workers, but I'm curious about that. Share.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first allocations went out early in the year, again, to get food moving, and some of it was held back just to see what was going to happen, to see if somebody was going to be hired, to see if I don't think there was a set plan. And then it got to March or April, and the money was there, and there was nobody in place to say where to do it. And it was just divvied up between the schools and said, have this. So it was in their budgets, and it has now rolled over to this year. So they've got startup funds and will be taken into account for allocations of this year. So we've got what they were allocated, what they spent, and what's rolled over, and then it'll be calculated again. So it's actually an increase in the budget for this year because it's funds that weren't spent.
I apologize if I have seen this detail before and I'm not recalling, so I'll just be honest about that. But I understand you haven't been over to the islands yet, and I appreciate you saying that. I was curious, of the 95,000 community school societies, do you know, I should know, I don't recall whether any went through Denman Island Community Education Society or Hornby Island Education Society?
None of that 95 did. That is just to Cumberland, Courtneyall, and Lake Trail. Both Hornby and Denman requested to have additional funding through Community Links so that they had more flexibility to spend it. So they have a higher Community Links allocation than the other community schools to make up for that. And then they get this, like, their school allocation in relation to all the other schools, but the societies don't get specific funding.
But appreciate the detail, thank you.
No worries.
Janet?
I have a couple of questions, but I'll start with one.
Okay.
Thank you for being here tonight and providing this updated information and accepting the job and the challenge. You know, we've all been waiting quite a while and we're excited about moving forward. One question I have is you've included a fair amount of information about the Food Policy Council, and I'm curious what kind of role or relationship or connection you envision for like your position and what you're doing in the district in relation to that community's support in that organization.
To be totally fair, I haven't been to a Food Policy Council meeting. I don't have a great understanding of what it is. I'm just trying to pick it up from a place of the school board's priority of getting food to students, and then adding in pieces like local food supplies and increasing nutrition where we can, once all students have equal access to food as a basic, which is happening in most schools, but there are some schools that are struggling. So I think for the short term, we just need to prioritize getting food, easy access to food in all schools, and then developing that, reaching out to those existing supports and developing them.
I'm going to go around everybody gets to ask once.
No, I just went to the Food Policy Council as the trustee. Or no?
I'm not sure, it was, we're talking about the report, is there something you want to add?
No, it was just about her question. No, it was about
Okay.
Shannon's question.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out if it, if you have something to add to build on
I just
Shannon's
wanted to-
question.
Yeah, I was going to share that Thea has been invited to the Comox Valley Food Policy Council meeting, that we also were wanting to communicate a little bit, but we've, again, that her top priority is the students, so we've just kind of left it at that place. But I know that the group is very keen to find out about the committee that's coming and things along those lines. But yeah, even with us, even trying to communicate is, she's busy. She is so much so. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing what you've learned as the trustee liaison on that Food Policy Council for us. Thank you. My question isn't very exciting. I have a couple, but I'm going to start with one through the Secretary Treasurer. Maybe you know the answer. On page 2 of the first briefing note, in the middle, what is the acronym BCAIPC? It's not a test, but I'm asking my question through the Secretary Treasurer.
It's the BC Agriculture in the Classroom. So it was a provincially funded program that delivered fruit and veggies and milk to, I think, every school in our district. And at the middle of last year, the province decided they weren't going to fund it. Districts could use Feeding Futures funds to pay for that program if they wanted to participate.
I think I heard of it. Oh, maybe
It's called the Fruit and Veggie Program. That's, yeah, that is what it's called.
So now for round 2 of questions. Sarah Jane?
I, through the Secretary Treasurer, you, well, and kind of to you, but I'm sure Thea can answer this as well. You had kind of mentioned, I was just looking at the staff allocation for food service workers, and you did mention that you were looking at like having additional staff, paid staff in the district. Could you just expand on that a little bit? And is there any like sort of information that you wanted to share with us about that?
Yep. So the district has 2 employed food service workers right now, one at Ortonville and one at Lake Trail. I'm not sure how that happened historically. I imagine it was some sort of relationship through the community school connection. Food is getting to students in schools, but it is a whole host of people making it. We've got principals shopping, youth and family workers making sandwiches, EAs coming in early to make breakfast. And in some schools, it's working beautifully. Those QP staff love the extra time. They get add to pay. They're passionate about it. They are interested in making menus and feeding kids. Some schools are struggling and they don't have the access to that extra staff time. And so that is where we would be looking to add food service workers. I think there are 9 schools in total that have been identified. So 2 already have them. And then they're just part-time at the others. So my hope would be that we could combine them to make it closer to a full-time job that they could do between 2 schools. So like Isfeld needs support with their salad bar, Valley View needs support with their breakfasts, and they could work to, like, they'd be complementary to each other, so the same person could go back and forth.
Thank you so much.
Next hand? I wasn't sure, Shannon.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions, but I'm curious. I think you said that you've been to almost all the schools, not reading them yet, but
Yeah, I've spoken to them, but
and I'm curious in terms of like the discussions you're having at this school level. Are you meeting mostly with like administrators, or are you also meeting with like EAs and ISWs who are helping with purchasing, preparing, and delivering, and then also parent volunteers as well? Because I know one of the comments in, I don't remember which of the 3 reports, the initial one or either of your 2, but talked about a lot of the work also being done by volunteers. So I'm curious kind of where that fits into the work you've done and the vision going forward, whether volunteers will still be a big base or.
yeah, so I've met with principals, and then through them with EAs, ISWs, youth and family workers, like everybody that's been involved as they've been available. And PACs, most schools have a PAC hot lunch. They're run as fundraisers, and most schools have them operating separately to the food that they're providing for free, because they're sometimes up to $10 a meal, and schools can make sandwiches or soup or provide snacks for $1.50 a day. So they are pretty much running separately. There are some schools where PACs are involved in lunches for hungry students, but not very many. So they, I mean, obviously, ideally that would be the case, but I think lots of schools are struggling to find volunteers in general and are making use of them for things like salad bars that are kind of big operations and person heavy, and then the other stuff is being covered by staff.
I just have one, sorry for, this is like sort of a last minute notice here. I'm just looking at under Indigenous education here, I must have just missed this paragraph here or not been paying attention, so my apologies. But I'm just looking here, is this a typo where it's just saying 250 milliliters soup is a meal portion size? Is that correct?
That is, according to Health Canada, with something else, like a cup of soup is considered a meal.
It's considered a meal, okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
With something else, yeah, like Vanier does their soup. Vanier they have their, like the soup program soup, but then for their hungry students, their chef makes soup every day as a totally separate operation. And they bake scones every day that go with the soup. So it's a more balanced meal.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Can I add to that? I think that's actually a great question, because again, in my learnings with the that around that is that I think my understanding was that the soup was the meal. And I
Yeah.
think that the soup program, which is absolutely beautiful for many reasons, that's happening in schools. All of the schools are making lunch. So it's a beautiful add-on, but schools
Yeah.
are still needing to supply staff and the cost of a meal with that. So
Yeah.
it's really an important point.
Thanks.
Yeah. My understanding is that that Feeding Futures, and one of the things that's been identified in your reports as well, is that the intention initially is really trying to identify and serve the kids who are coming to school hungry and who are facing food insecurity. And I know that's something that can be challenging, and we have kind of mixed success with that. Is that also part of what you're doing moving forward, or does that become something that you rely more on the schools themselves, and your job is where the food aspect?
Like in procurement, like centralizing procurement, is that?
I guess I'm meaning actually delivery to specific students.
Okay.
The identification of where in the school to best be reaching the children who need it most.
It's, I mean, ideally we'd have like a succinct policy, like this is how we do it. Every school is so different. Their demographics are different, their facilities are different, their needs are different. Like Rob Road doesn't have a breakfast program because it hasn't been identified. They've never been asked for breakfast. They haven't seen a need for it. So I think the best way to meet those needs is to support schools who know their students, who know their staff. And some schools, youth and family workers use lunches as a connection tool. Others, they're just handed out in the hallway. And the overall feeling that I've got is that the schools are identifying those students and are able to make those connections. And yeah, I don't know how we could know better than they do there. Like yeah.
I just have to make sure I get it right. So would it be through the advisory committee, once it's been struck and running, to look through all of these areas of how we're currently executing the procurement and delivery of food, to which schools and which supports, including the soup food program? And the reason I'm asking it specifically is I was at something where one of the school districts in the province, they make soup centralized and then they deliver. And they have these big thermos things that they deliver to each school, and each school gets soup. And it sounds like each of our schools gets soup, but it's more complicated. So would that be something that the advisory committee would do, or would that be something more that in Thea's role that she would navigate?
Well, we need to develop the terms for what that advisory committee looks like. But I think with everyone's input, we were thinking that the advisory committee would probably be more of at a higher level. Like, I know one of the recommendations is how are we embedding Indigenous perspectives? How are we connecting this to our garden framework? I can't remember exactly the garden, looking at Jeremy, whether he knows garden, those sorts of things. But that's not to say that we couldn't get there. I mean, I'm going to in part go back to your question. I mean, the beauty of Thea's expertise in this area and all the information she has is to be able to bring that and share it, and maybe wrestle with some of those conversations around how do we do this best. And even though schools absolutely know their students, their learners, their, everything best, because she has the lens on it all, she'll know where the inequities do lie, right? And why is this happening at this school but not at that school? So
The other thing I've noticed is that there isn't a lot of sharing between the schools of information. And so some have come up with some beautiful workarounds to problems that they've had. And that information could be shared with other schools who are having similar problems. And everybody's just busy doing what they're doing. And so having an advisory committee that can share that information and bounce ideas off of each other is will, yeah, definitely help direct where we go.
did that answer the question?
I think so. I was more trying to share about that One Soup program that I'd heard about as an example of a way that, because it doesn't look like it would, I don't see any team building or connectivity in the soup making process, but I might have missed it. And so just asking if, like, what the goal is, like, and how would it be looked at on, you know, do we continue with the good food boxes? Do we continue with, or how do we evolve it, as an example?
Soup specifically, it was started by Indigenous Education in partnership with Lush, and it was used as a tool by ISWs to connect with students. They brought students in, they made soup, they shared a meal. And I think it's been running for 7 years, and over the last 7 years, it has evolved, and ISWs are feeling the need to be with students in classes or working directly with students. And so other people have picked it up, whether it be EAs or principals or, you know, whoever has been available. And so it has evolved a lot over the last few years, and I think is continuing to evolve. And so absolutely, that definitely could be looked at to see, like, it's really, as Carrie said, beautiful in lots of ways, but just how we can make the most of it. And yeah, and also on the funding piece, that Indigenous Education is not putting any targeted funds into food. So where this was fed through Indigenous Education last year, that definitely will change for this year. So this is last year's spending, but it will look different for this year.
Did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that piece. And Thea actually just described the comments I was going to describe. And I think now, just from the PAC meetings that I attend or any community connections that I have, I think it's so variable with that program from school to school. Like in some schools, it's a very student-led process, and I've actually witnessed students like being a part of the soup making process and really enjoying that. And in other schools, I've heard different results where it's just something that's trying to be kept up with, or something that's not working really in some ways. So it's really great to have you evaluating something like that and making it benefit everybody, and especially students in the end, whether they're eating or participating in the fun of making food.
I agree.
I was just going to add that I think that that back to the amount of money that was coming out of targeted dollars, I think last year that it didn't occur and won't going forward. I just wanted to quickly make that correction so that the board is aware that that's not happening, and it wasn't last year.
Thank you.
And maybe just further to a few things that you have said, Thea and I have had a lot of conversations that even though Feeding Future seems like a large amount of money, it really isn't. Like, it would never be enough to even come close to doing a universal program. And I think board advocacy in that area will be great going forward. And the sole purpose is to feed as many students that need it, or even beyond, with the finite dollars that we have. And so we really do have to take a hard look at what we've been doing, which is, again, beautiful and wonderful, and it was all being piecemealed, right?
Yep.
But I know that Thea is very laser focused on like how do we feed the most number of children, our most vulnerable learners who have so many food security issues with the small amount of money that we do have.
Absolutely.
There's my passion. I think you had a question too.
Yeah.
Shannon?
I think we're all very passionate about this program. This might actually be a question more for you, Carrie, but how are the decisions being made around, or who's making the decisions around the committee composition and terms of reference? It looks like it's going to be done in the next month, but it's not clear to me how. And then one other question for Thea is whether you know of any like resource in the province where there is a sharing of ideas around what districts are doing what, as one district, and we hear about other districts, and every district's different, so what works in one may not work in another, but there may also be some ideas that can be.
Yeah, I was on a Zoom call last week or the week before with, there's something called Shift Collaborative, who I think the province have employed to coordinate exactly that. So we have every 2 or 3 weeks, there's a Zoom meeting with all of the coordinators. And then there's an in-person gathering in Vancouver on the end of this month that I will be going to, and hopefully building connections with coordinators in other districts so that sharing can go up to the next level. Yeah, I was just on one hour call, and I picked up so much from it of just what other people are doing.
I know that you will know this, but a reminder to the room that when the board passed the recommendation, their 5-point recommendation about the Feeding Futures, the advisory committee would have representation from internal partner groups, rights holders, and invited external community member organizations, and that community school representation would be included as an internal partner group.
I mean, it's so
I had to look before the meeting to find it, and I went, because I remembered that we had done that, and but I figured you already remembered that. I had to look it up. I was wondering before if the trustees, Christy, go ahead, and then I'm going to ask the public who has graciously attended if they have any questions after Christy asks her question, and if Chelsea has another question as well.
Question to Secretary Treasurer, possibly. Yeah, I'm wondering about if anybody thought that it would considered the possibility of getting together the food champions in each of our schools and coming together in person to share what's being done, because while it's all in Thea's work, it's not something, and maybe in the interim before we look at the committee, which is a separate beast in itself, just our food champions within each of our schools to come together to share, maybe those successes and challenges in order to maybe fast track some solutions that are already, specific to our area and our district. Because if something's happening in one area, chances are it's happening in the other. And also, again, being sure to, include our islands and, everyone up north, and the whole area, and all of whether that's a principal or the workers or whoever. I'm wondering if that's been considered, or.
I think that in again, visiting all of the schools to try and figure out who is doing it and how they're doing it. And then the next step would be, let's put the additional supports in place that we need in schools that don't have them. So hiring some additional food service workers, and then probably later in the year, I could see there being some value in, okay, these are the supports we've now put into place. Let's connect those people, because there would be a group missing at this point, given we haven't hired a number of them. But unless you want to add it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, that there are lots of really passionate people in schools, but there are also gaps. And I think in those schools particularly, the staff that are keeping it together are already really taxed. And so ideally we'll have people in place in the next couple of months. And then, yeah, that would be a great thing to do.
And so I'm going to one of the tables further down the room, just asking if you had any questions that you wanted to ask through the Secretary Treasurer on this topic. I apologize, I didn't ask you if you had questions about arenas or field, but if you have questions about any of this.
Through the Secretary Treasurer, we just want to extend a thank you to Thea. I don't think you can talk to her without understanding how much she wants to feed kids and how passionate she is. And she has been uber respectful to us as a partner group and reached out and had lots of communications. She even graced us with her presence at our DPAC meeting, which was really lovely to see and to hear from her. And so I don't have a specific question. We'll review this, and I just have the utmost confidence that Thea will continue to reach out to us and continue to have conversations with us. And I just am very appreciative of that. We all are.
Since that was through me, I'm able to,
Yes.
you know, I just thank you so much for recognizing that. Again, like, I am so grateful and thankful to Thea. You're a rock star. You've got this. I love that you've got, you know, boots on the ground, like you're in the schools, you're talking to the people that are actually the ones that are involved in feeding or making food. So, and that you have been so inclusive in talking to everybody that you need to talk to. So, yeah, I'm incredibly grateful also, again, for the learnings that you've given me on this topic, because I had no idea.
Thank you.
And I will, if I could just add
Are you going to end? Okay, all
a
right.
couple of comments. I was very excited to see you in this role also. I've had the privilege of volunteering alongside Thea, watching her make connections with students, really understanding like how to make food systems work and really truly caring about kids. And so I'm just, yeah, excited to see what's happening in the district. I'm glad to see the partnerships that are happening in community. And yeah, great job. Yeah, thank you much. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, great. That was wonderful. And moving on to the next wonderful portion of our agenda, just recognizing the time and the importance of the topic that we're going to be hearing about next, which is our local education agreement update by our Associate Superintendent, Joe Heslop, that, you know, we may run over 8:30, and that's okay, because this is a really important topic. And as with teachers, as with learning about potential arenas and artificial turf fields. So Joe, welcome. Thank you for coming a little closer to share with us tonight.
Thank you. Really grateful to be here with you all and share this time with you. And come up here and be a little closer. I was all by myself over there. So just reflecting week 8 on the job. I just want to extend my gratitude for hiring me. It has been a wild and awesome ride so far. It's my pleasure to bring this update regarding the LEA to you, and feel free to jump in. I want to start off just by mentioning that this is something that I hope to do year over year with the board. We're doing updating the senior team and the PVP with regards to our obligations and our pleasure in fulfilling those obligations to KFN, Comox First Nation. And so I'm just going to give you a bit of an update as to what's gone on in some of the early weeks, because I see that we're actioning. I'm pleased to say that we're actioning quite a few items, and I'm looking forward to your questions and possible concerns. So really just quickly, the weeks of September 9th through to the 20th, just getting the ball rolling, understanding what our LEA, how to action that. We met with the Indigenous support teacher, that's Natasha, and you're going to see her later in the PowerPoint, to respond to some requests that she had with regards to better tracking of the supports for KFN on reserve students. And then also meeting with Lana to discuss our data analyst who has created 2 really excellent dashboards with regards to tracking and supporting First Nations students here on reserve. So, and those are the accountability survey, KFN on reserve and off reserve dashboard. More on that later. And the Power BI KFN data tool attendance support tracking and grades and other great things, which you'll see soon. September 13th, we had a weekly update, as you know, that goes out, and that was the update to the leadership team, just including the local education agreement pamphlet, which you likely had seen. It's in your package and it's been out in schools and whatnot. Just a reminder to folks, as well as this overview and understanding of LEA local education agreements. Really helpful, just giving that baseline information for any new principals, vice principals that might not be aware of this work. So getting that started there and then following up. So this isn't a one and done, this is multiple points of entry. So September 26th, we had last week, we had a 30-minute presentation to the exempt staff regarding the LEA. That's in your PDF if you want to review it later. And I'm going to go through a bit of that because I think that might be helpful. And then October 1st, we arranged meetings with PVP wherever KFN students, on reserve students attend. And so just to offer a dashboard walkthrough so that, you know, I know when you start talking about new data tools, we want to make things as frictionless as possible. Do the links work? Do the drop downs work? Walking through with folks. So having that, it's not just a presentation, it's then following up. And I'm happy to say, had the first principal, vice principal meeting today with Isfeld. We've got 2 more this week, and then into next week, and we'll have all of the training sessions done there. But October 1st, after that, on October 2nd, we met, Jeremy, Jay, and myself met with Coral McKay and Aaron Higginbottom at Comox First Nation to discuss some of this work, and they had requests with regards to the accountability survey. They had updates they wanted to have done. The teams I'm working with are so fast. It's already done. It's nice when you can just say, check, we've got that. They were looking for a glossary of terms with regards to supports for students. And within 24 hours, we had that done from Natasha, and it's input into the system. And Bing, I love hearing that. It's we've got that done. And then they've also requested something that'll take a little bit more time with regards to KFN had asked for baseline data for on-reserve learners from 23-24 school year, right? That's pretty typical information that they'd want to know. And you want to see the baseline in comparison with Indigenous learners and all learners. So that's something that we hope to provide shortly to them, so we can work with the partners on creating their own attendance. I think it's an incentive program, right? And just trying to create that baseline. Just one high-level thing to talk about, which was helpful at that meeting, was just sharing the fact that there are such small numbers of Comox First Nation on-reserve learners. We really wanted to present, like, look, this document, the local education agreement, we want to act in good faith that we are sharing all that we can. But if we're talking about 1 or 2 students, we really have to be judicious in the language that we use so that we're not breaking FOIPA rules. So just want to note that. Almost done with this little update, and then I'll get into the PowerPoint quickly, because I know we all want to get home. Today, sent the webinar and the recording of that PowerPoint presentation to the PVP, again, as multiple points of entry, because if you're like me, sometimes you watch something and you'll get it, but you'll forget one little piece, and you might not want to ask when you're doing your walkthrough. So it's nice to have a scroll back. What did he say? Oh, fast forward. I don't want to hear that. Don't you wish you could do that sometimes in meetings? Maybe now. So we're setting dates with Comox First Nation for November, February, May, and June meetings, just holding us accountable to our obligations, and pleasure to do those with KFN, and we are working towards that. One other thing that we mentioned in that meeting with them, they are interested in connecting with other IAJUATHM school districts. So we've been able to facilitate some, through some relationships with CAFET, I think I might be saying that correctly or incorrectly, SD47 and formerly Powell River, which I'm pleased to hear that they're not called Powell River anymore. And then lastly, the Power BI data tools. One thing, the reason why I'm really stoked about this is that these tools are the beginning. So it starts with our circle of support. We're really tracking KFN on reserve students and then off reserve students. And then what is coming and what we're messaging to all principals and vice principals is that this is then to all Indigenous learners. We're going to be having these meetings, these supports that we have, and all learners. So this is just something that we do. We're using data in a different way in this district moving forward, and pleased to be working with some really great people in data. Okay, very quickly. So you're getting a little bit about what, unless the hook is coming in, I'd like to give you a little bit about what.
Please take your time.
Okay, a little bit about what came to the PVP, and you might find this useful. So this is the primer information, and so again, if you want to review anything in the package later, I urge you to do so. So local education agreements embody that distinctions-based relationship, recognizing the unique rights of First Nations communities. This ensures equitable education so that First Nation students receive education services that are equitable and that are culturally appropriate. We're defining responsibilities and accountability. So we're clarifying what our roles are and our responsibilities for us and also for the First Nations with regards to what is it that we are, how are we supporting each other in order to make sure that the students are meeting expectations of their parents and the community. And of course, ultimately, we're supporting student success, right? The whole point of this is to improve educational outcomes for First Nations students. Graduation rates, reducing the gaps in achievement, and addressing like attendance, other issues, whatever it is that the nation feels we should be. And this is, of course, taken directly, through the codifying the laws through Bill 40, stating the distinctions-based approach to Indigenous education. So this here is taken directly from our pamphlet here, providing Comox students, all Comox students in all schools, that recognizes, respects that plurality, right, of Kwakiwak and Salish cultural practices, traditions, and languages. We signed this local education agreement in 2022. We have a lot of work to do to action all of the things that we say that we are going to do together. We had a very honest and frank meeting with the First Nation, and I'm really pleased with how gracious and kind and generous they really are with us, knowing that we are doing our best, but our best thus far has not really been good enough. So we have lots to do. Achieving high levels of success, making sure that we are providing culturally relevant and safe, caring learning environments for students. It currently concludes in 2027, but this is a living document, so it is going to change, and I'll mention how that might look later. Again, just pointing out, I've got the red arrow. This is specific, wanted to really drive home the point with principals and vice principals that we are providing that regular ongoing communication between us and the parents and students and nation. With regards to culture, so this goes for all KFN students in all, but regardless of whether you have KFN students in your schools or not, that Comox culture and language will be represented aesthetically in schools. The language and culture will take precedence over other Indigenous languages and cultures because we are here, we're in this spot. And that doesn't mean that we're not inclusive of Métis and other cultures from away, but that we honor Comox languages first. So that is in all schools. So then we think about, okay, drilling down into specific schools, and then noting, and I remember saying to the principals and vice principals, if you're not one of the principals and vice principals of these schools, still pay attention, because we can, at any time, students can transfer schools, and this is going to be something that we'll be actioning throughout the district. So Section 14 of the LEA, speaking about curriculum, instruction, and assessment, so that all students' progress is monitored closely. Specific descriptive feedback provided to students and reported to parents. That there's graduation program supports, that the student will have every opportunity to meet with staff about their IEP or educational program, and I underlined no later than 10 school days after the request has been made. So it's just ensuring that we are timely in our response. As well, in underlying the fact that parents are partners, so that we're reporting the Comox education coordinator, that would be Erin Higginbottom, and as well as Natasha, the Indigenous success teacher, any concerns that you're having with regards to behavior or attendance of each Comox student. But really important, where those behaviors occur due to racism that they experience, that needs to be addressed too. Right? We can't just be hammering home, okay, this occurred here, and not addressing the underlying issue if racism was there. And that's also speaking about suspensions as well. So the fact that we're including the use of restorative measures and practices, and more on that to come. So I was allowed to show this lovely picture of Natasha Ranke. She's the Indigenous support teacher. She's in her third year of the position. It takes a long time to build a relationship, and she's done a fantastic job. I'm happy to be supporting her this year. She supports all KFN students. She tracks student success. She reports on their success and has those close relationships with the families in the nation. And I asked her for some advice for us. So she had suggested, when you're meeting with students and parents and guardians, just recognize that the office can be a trigger. So you really want to consider having advocacy support. So having supports there at the school. And that actually is part of our LEA. That's section 16G, ensuring that the parents of Comox students are included in meetings concerning their children, and that they can request to have the Comox success teacher, a relative, elder, counselor, advocate with them in those meetings. Also reminding folks to keep Natasha informed about concerns. That's really important since she has the relationships with students and families, and that the board will report to the Comox education coordinator as well as herself any concerns that they have with regards to for any of the students that have consented to allow her to work with their students, and nearly all have. I think 28 out of 29 have. This is a quick preview of the tools that we can use. You can drill right down into On Reserve. That is the primary responsibility. That's support for all 29 On Reserve learners. You'll notice in your package it said 28. We've had an update. It's 29 now. So we're on the rise. But that also means that she does provide supports for off reserve learners as well. So, because once you develop relationships, you're not going to peel away. And I just also want to mention, while the LEA deals specifically with on reserve learners, the nation is close to ratifying a treaty, right? So that's coming closer, and I do imagine that some of the inequities between on reserve, off reserve, that seems like a bit of an Indian Act issue, and I believe that will be gone. And so, therefore, we would be providing the support for all KFN students, and how lovely. Again, back to our action plan. You'll notice I bolded and underlined, because this is something that will be new to principals, vice principals this year, that we will be creating and maintaining an Indigenous support team. This is right out of the LEA, so that we will have the school principal, vice principal, counselor, learning support teacher, Indigenous success advisor, and Indigenous support worker. If we're meeting specifically about Joe, let's say 3 times a year, 4 times a year, and we will be able to meet specifically around what are the supports, what are the concerns, what's going great, and be able to track that in this report that I'll be sharing with you. So the support team will meet throughout the year, and we've messaged this now to folks, and Natasha's phone is blowing up. Principals want to meet with her right away, so hooray. Again, that would be also IEP tracking following team-based meetings for every nominal role student. And this is what the KFN tool looks like. You can look into student grades. I've just made some dummy data here. So, taking a look at this tool, you can click one of the students. It takes you to, again, some data here. But basically, for this fake student that we've got, you can look at attendance, you can look at their grades, you can see how they did on FSA, you can drill down. So this is an excellent tool for checking in before your meeting to just notice, okay, it seems like attendance might be an issue here and has been for several years. What are we doing differently? Because if we're doing the same thing, probably going to get the same results. So helpful for us to be looking into those issues. There's way more on this tool, which I walk folks through each different tab. Not going to do it with you tonight, but just know that there's lots to come. And we've got great data folks here that this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. We'll be digging really deeply into data, and I'm looking forward to doing that. This is another tool that we're using. So this would be actually the data entry piece that where principals, vice principals, Natasha, ISWs will be, they're already reporting on this. And we'll be able to then track which supports for which students. And we have a nice pie chart to show exactly where throughout the year we've been. And that way we can really, when we're meeting in November, say, for our students, we're noticing that we're tracking more of this type of support in class or attendance, whatever it might be. And this just is walking the principals through how to create a report. And this is a phony report that I created, just saying we met about student A, reviewing this and that. Boom, they hit submit, and they've done their work. So sharing with principals, this was letting them know that we'll be doing these walkthroughs, and we're already on track with that. This is just some general information, just to remind us that changes are coming and they're long overdue, right? We have you know, a 9th standard that's been out for teachers for 7 years, and we are sharing that out. This is part of that work. This is part of our LEA. Also wanted to share, I guess, in this with folks that might not know that it's different through an LEA, the way that funding works, and that things may be changing. You know, for instance, we've got this LEA right now, but I've got the provincial, through Bill 40, the provincial template, and there's things in the template that KFN likes, and that we will be meeting with it, and we will be updating as we need to. So outside of those meetings, we will have ad hoc meetings, and if they say, hey, we want to have a more robust attendance procedure with the schools that were there, that, okay, after 5 days we do this, and after 10 days we do that, and if we don't do that, they have every right to enact whatever it might be here. And there are some repercussions for us if we do not do our duty here. So that may be coming, and we will be happy to action that as well. And yeah, I think I directed that we have some meeting minutes. If you're interested in reading those from last year, they're right here. And I'm looking forward to our next meetings. Oh, and I also gave homework, so I'm going to give you homework too, just before we end. Every presentation I do, we've got 4 questions for you, and it's for me as well. When was the last time you were in ceremony? Who is your elder? Can you speak 10 words in the language and the land that you work on? And have you been to the local First Nation, Friendship Center, Métis chartered community? I say this to everyone, including my own family, and it always feels good when you're in ceremony. Some of us know what that felt like last week, and it's encouraging. It brings us back to our humanity. So that is this part of the presentation, and I'll open it up to any questions or concerns.
Thank you very much. You've covered a lot of ground in 8 weeks, and we're all excited about that. I just want to ask the superintendent, do you have anything that you would like to add before we entertain questions through the superintendent?
Well, it was a comprehensive report. I think the only thing I would add is just express my gratitude for the ground that has been covered in a short period of time, and just recognition that this is a collective priority of our district, and that it is, I think, a great example of where, you know, that picture of the ripples in the pond, and as we take care of the business that we have signed up to take care of, that it starts to set the stage for that to become something that can impact in a positive way outcomes for all kids in the district, and certainly just identifying the priority of this and doing well with that. I've just appreciated the tenacity and the intensity and the deep understanding of the priority of this work, and so just grateful to have Joe on the team.
trustees have any questions for Joe, or Jeremy? Or comments? Kelsey?
Sure. Yeah, through our superintendent, my question is specific to the, I don't want to call it the portal, the accountability survey. Just maybe I didn't understand who would have access to this sort of piece, and just a little more understanding of the implementation of this and how it works. And yeah, thank you. Tenacity was the exact word I thought, so it's incredible. See.
So, yeah, I apologize. I drank coffee before I spoke, so I'm running fast and hot. So the principals and vice principals will have access to this tool. The Indigenous support workers have access to that tool as well. And Natasha has access to that. Now, in time, I'm wondering if we may expand to, say, school counselors if they're having a meeting. But again, that would be something that we would want to clear with KFN. Are they comfortable with additional supports and permissions as they go? But that's data entry. They won't see the overall or specific aside from their own comments. So I think Bruce, myself, Josh will have access to the the collective data where we can see in the pie charts. Because what I want to do is, again, provide KFN the supports to show them what we're doing without saying we met about Chelsea and here's where Chelsea's struggling. That's not respectful. So it's I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have a question? Yes, go ahead.
One of the questions I have and curiosities is how we're actioning, things like this student behavior support and the team surrounding our students moving forward, because that's definitely one of the concerns I've heard from some of our parents. And, what does that look like? Is that going to look like, policies and procedures in when situations arise, or how does that look? Because I feel right now that that's something that we don't have continuity in our schools or in our district, unfortunately, in how everyone deals with issues. So I'm wondering time frame and how that's going to be executed for our students.
Maybe I'll take that one. Joe mentioned more to come.
Yes.
And didn't actually specify in the presentation because it is to come. But acknowledge, and I think in the public is a good place to acknowledge it, that restorative practices is something that we need to step into as a collective district on behalf of all of the students who we have the privilege of serving. And so I think, again, this is one of those leverage points where we have a responsibility to on-reserve Indigenous students through the LEA that will serve all students well as we build those restorative practices, skills, and processes within the district. So the timeline is getting going on it now this year. Yeah.
If we had never had I would love to hear that there's no more parents that don't feel like they're included in this process and with things that happen with their student, because that would upset any parent at all. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And Christy was our IPAC trustee liaison last year, so may have heard some information through wearing that or holding that portfolio.
If I could just add one more piece.
I'm not going to say no.
Thank you so much. I do think when you look at our strategic plan, and the very first design principle and action component of it is around recognizing and decolonizing, and a recognition that this is where, when we start to see the alignment across the district, we start to see things like restorative practice as a way of being. And it's not going to be like potentially that also is how we work with some employee issues in a different way. And so it's going to be something that HR is looking at, that our PDP team is looking at. What does it look like in all of our departments? And so, but again, restorative practices is more than just a skill set. It's a value system. It's a way of expressing how we do our work. And so it will be a growth area that we stretch into.
Just to reflect, your question touches on culture change, and I'm deeply invested in culture change and have seen it implemented with varying degrees of success and less than success. And I'm very curious and passionate about ensuring that it's done in a good way here. We humans sometimes take some time to understand that our lens might need some cleaning.
Sarah Jane?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I've mentioned in meetings in the past, Jeremy has a good way of words and can usually kind of speak for us in a really great way. But I just do really appreciate you and the words that you chose tonight, in just the way that you're describing it being like a pleasure for us to be doing this work and that we're happy to be doing this work. And I know the board feels really strongly about that. And I'll speak for myself, obviously, but I think I can speak for us all in saying that we're just really grateful to have you and having like the whole, you just representing us in that way and us all just having you there to sort of champion some of this work and be including us in some of this work that's going on in all different aspects of the district. So it's much appreciated to have you here and, you know, to have this board and how we feel about these issues and what's going on and to build these relationships together. So thank you.
I do, although I echo Sarah Jane's comments that really, yes, thank you very much for all that you're bringing to the district. And the risk of sound, it's hard to ask questions after that beautiful comment. I see a couple of places in the presentation where there's direct reference to board responsibilities. One of them is in relation to regular and ongoing communication between KFN, the school board, students and families. And so my first question is kind of what the plan is around that regular communication. I'm assuming it's not every month. Will it be kind of once a year? Would we expect our next report on this to come closer to the end of the year or mid-year one as well? Or
so with regards to, if I'm understanding your question correctly, almost everything in the LEA speaks about the board's obligations and responsibilities, everything. And everything is done through and assumed, as so many other things are, through staff. So a lot of that I feel like, okay, I know who's having that meeting. And I alluded to at least 4 meetings as well as the other ad hoc meetings. Now, if it comes back to reporting what's been done to the board with regards to, like, is this the one and done for you? No. I believe there's more to come throughout the working sessions throughout the year. And that will be my pleasure to share that with you. I think there's something later in the year. Maybe more than one.
There is.
Kelsey?
The only thing I was going to say that I just wanted to maybe appreciate is because you've spoken very clearly and I appreciate that too about where we were and where we need to be and where we have a long way to get to. One thing you said once was, I feel a feeling of relief hearing and seeing some of these systems start to be put in place and some of the action that you, in partnership with KFN, are taking. And you once said, and we don't, your wording was, and we don't pat ourselves on the back along the way. And I just wanted to like repeat that because I see you like living that out in the way you're speaking to us, in the way, and it's hard not to feel, oh, that's so wonderful to see. It's not wonderful to see, it is the work we're doing. And I appreciate you leading in that way because I've never forgotten that statement you said. And I'm so grateful to learn from you as we all do this together. So thank you.
Thanks. I would say through the superintendent, I would say in our district we have maybe not a unique opportunity, but an opportunity that should be recognized, that we don't. We have one nation that we're working with, and other districts sometimes have multiple nations that they're working with that may have values or philosophies that don't align, and it can become complex. And I'm wondering, in terms of opportunity, how do we lift up that opportunity in doing the work that we need to be doing? And it sounds like need to be doing a little faster than we've been doing, or more than a little faster. How do you, like through Jeremy, whose previous district had multiple nations, and now to our district where we have one, and you've experienced many in your work. How do we action? How do we embrace that opportunity, other than just laser focus? Is there, I don't want to oversimplify it, but just acknowledge it. It was sort of a question.
I'm okay to answer, but unless you jump in. I think what might be helpful to know is just that we do have one nation. We do, when we do also have traditional hereditary leadership as well in this area. And every area of Canada has complexities, including ours. And I think the work that we are doing what I can say is we will be doing this work with a good heart and a good mind. There will be stumbles as we're doing it. I make mistakes every day. Jeremy is humble as well. We're trying, and I don't see any of this work, none of it has ever been easy in any role that I've ever been in. And I would say the work itself, as long as we are upholding and getting back to the nation and hereditary families in a proper and respectful way, that's all we can do now. I can't imagine at this stage, and this is just maybe I'm being, it's likely humility. I wouldn't want to get ahead of myself to think that we just have to action what's in here. There's other asks that will come, and there will be other challenges, and we will have hard conversations, and those will be within our own departments, within our staff, within ourselves, maybe amongst ourselves. I think those opportunities and challenges are coming.
Can I just add to your answer? First of all, you identified that you make mistakes every day and that I'm also humble, but I would just want to clarify that I make multiple mistakes every day. So I just wanted to make sure you weren't alone on mistake making, Joe. But I think too, and I'm not sure if this is partially an answer to your question as well, Chair, but the fact is that this is a binding agreement for 29 Indigenous students, of which we have 1,782 Indigenous students this year, of which are part of 10,700 students that we have within the district. And I think that aspirationally, or maybe we could be critical, I guess we could frame it either way, which is if we can't do this for 29, how are we going to do it for the 1,782 and the 10,700? And I think that there is a leveraging of good work that can be amplified and scaled across the system to evoke the changes that we're seeking. And I think my hope is that is, and even when we sit with KFN, knowing that this agreement pertains to those students, their hope for our district is that the work that's happening at that table shapes, shifts, and improves outcomes for all Indigenous students, not just students that are Comox First Nations. So I would just add that.
That's an interesting answer, because I don't really know if I had a question really deep in there, but thank you to you both. Just wondering if any of the trustees have another question before I go to the far table.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we have considered or looked at opportunities for celebration. We've discussed at different times the board meeting with KFN or breaking bread, or, has there been any, celebrating, what we are doing. And I think that acknowledging steps forward is really important. And maybe we're not quite there yet until we've actioned a few more items, but wondering if that's been considered in our plan. So it's, living in the moment and
Yeah, I think, thank you for the question. I think where we're at right now is really just trying to build, because there's been so much changes, both with Comox First Nation and within the district, just trying to really build that relationship. And I think that will come through some contact and through that piece, and then hopefully having greater opportunities for that relationship building. And I think that, and I don't think any meeting that we're in, there isn't a sharing of some positive outcomes and good things that are happening. But it is inevitable and hard not to just focus on the work yet to do. So if you wanted to add anything there.
I guess I would just say, I am so heartened by this board. I think it's going to be, I'm looking forward to those opportunities will manifest themselves for relationship amongst each other, ourselves, decolonizing, and we will be the proof ourselves, and those relationships will just come. We will come for dinner, and it will just be, I see it. I already see it ahead. It's already here, and it will be manifesting, I'm sure.
And to that, I felt maybe I needed to find better words than the far table.
I heard a couple.
The table that hasn't raised their hand yet to ask questions. Do you have any questions?
Through the superintendent, we just thank you very much for this presentation. We have learned a lot. Sounds like we're behind and catching up, and we're excited for the work that's being done. I don't have a question per se, but just like to express our desire to respectfully engage in any way that you see fit. If there's anything that DPAC can do in any way, shape, or form, we are happy. We follow instructions amazingly, and we're happy we're happy to, in any way, be a partner in any capacity.
Wherever appropriate.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I respond?
Yes, you may.
I guess what I would say is more to come in the next board meeting regarding equity in action. I feel we'll have some future work together.
Thank you. Just looking around one more time to see if there's a question or thought. I'll end with a thank you. Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Thea. Thank you to the CVRD that came and went. Thank you to everyone that was here in person who may or may not watch the recorded leaders debate that happened, I think, simultaneously to our important open committee of the whole. Jeremy, did you have anything that you wanted to add? Okay, kind of looked like it, so I wasn't sure. Secretary Treasurer, do you have anything you'd like to add? You don't need to. Just checking. I know Sarah Jane.
It was on the verge of me adding that in our board work, we have noted that we would like to extend an invitation to meet with KFN.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry if I missed your hand when it was raised earlier. Sarah Jane?
No, I'm okay. I was thinking the same thing. So I don't know, sitting too close together or.
Okay, if it happens. All right.
Minds.
Well, on that note, would somebody like to
motion to adjourn?
Sarah Jane, seconded by Christy. All those in favor? Even those that can't vote. Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 8:43. Thank you.